list. Who is going to lead the Penguins in goals?
I stuck with a more along the lines answer because the way you look at Penguins history, I mean, who's led the team in goals and points since Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin got here? Those two, then Jake Guentzel got in there. I think Kris Kunitz got in the conversation once.
He did. I think it was the 2012-13 shortened season. Kunitz was up there in goals.
Yeah, so aside from those two names, no one else has stepped in. Then, Jake Guentzel was stepping in, and now we see how that's gone, and Kris Kunitz snuck his way in once. So this time around, I like the idea of Brian Rust. Do you have a number to that? Did you say a number?
I didn't say a number, but I had predicted last week for my bold predictions. Actually, it was my extra bold prediction that he'd score 30 plus. But I think if he stays healthy, he goes well over 30 plus.
Okay, yeah, and I like that. But I will just kind of stick with the obvious, stick with the Sidney Crosby veteran player, the excellence of Sidney Crosby, and I'll say 41. By the way, I will give him another 40-goal season, one less from last year. But there will be other improvements to be had for Sidney Crosby.
I like it. Another 40-goal season for the captain. And let's move over with that to the power play points here, because that's going to be a big topic of conversation all season long. Crosby led the team in power play points last year. Erik Karlsson had a good bit. He was in the top three. Evgeni Malkin was in the top three, as you would expect whenever you watch the Penguins power play. Even if it's bad, those three players are going to have a hand in it. So I would imagine we're going to each pick from one of those three players. Horwat, who do you have leading the team in power play points this year?
I have Sidney Crosby again. It's just hard to come up with anyone else putting up counting stats of predicting this team out right now, especially on the power play, because it was so horrid last year that it just feels like the obvious answer as well. Mm-hmm. I threw down a number of 30 just to kind of throw a number down. I don't expect to be correct on the number part of it, but definitely a step in the right direction, an improvement. I think we're all expecting the power play to be better and everyone to get more points, but I think Crosby will probably lead the way in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all expect that power play to be better, and I will ask in a second what you've thought about the power play so far. Again, preseason, grain of salt. Erik Karlsson hasn't even been out there. So you have to obviously understand that it's going to look a little bit different once the regular season rolls around and throughout the season. But speaking of Erik Karlsson, that's my pick for this one. I like the pick of Crosby, but everything should, and I'll highlight that again, should run through Erik Karlsson this season. And I'm hoping that he takes a little bit more of a command of that power play unit. With David Quinn running the unit, with him in year 2 with the Penguins, we're expecting those things to help his all-around game. But I think specifically on the power play, they need to instill the confidence in him that, everything runs through you. We've seen the power play look a little bit different, right? The breakout looks like the drop pass is much less of a factor. It looks like they're moving players around. Evgeni Malkin was on the left half wall for a lot of those power plays on Tuesday night against the Red Wings. So I like the movement. I like how they're switching things up. But I do believe that with that, if they're better, it's going to be Erik Karlsson who scores. And that's kind of leads into what I had for my bold prediction of him scoring 70 plus. I think it's going to be because he's going to put in a lot of goals and a lot of points on the power play.
And I like that prediction too. You're right. Everything should be flowing through Erik Karlsson, especially if he is the one that stays on the top unit. And the power plays looked a bit more aggressive in terms of getting things done through those practice reps. They look to be making sure they're not passing the puck into the net, except for the fact they did it once in a preseason game.
Yeah.
Still, it's going to be we're all expecting improvements. We're all expecting step forwards, and it should all flow through Erik Karlsson on that blue line.
Yeah, before we go over to points, I want to ask you your opinion on what you've seen so far during the games. I mean, again, preseason games, but these are the practice reps essentially, and it's showing a little glimpse of what they're trying to do. And it looks like for the first time in multiple years, they're making some substantial changes to the actual scheme when it comes to their power play.
It does. I just feel like I haven't seen enough of it from the guys that will be on it. I mean, we haven't seen the starting 5, if you will, in too many preseason games. So it's tough to give a label and tough to assess. But so far, again, steps in the right direction.
Yeah, more shot-centric and seemingly getting more shots from the center of the ice and moving a couple guys more towards the center of the ice. Again, we're going to have to wait to see a lot more. I know Jesse Marshall of The Athletic has mentioned that he's going to do a video room on it once there's more regular season reps. So I'm looking forward to that, to kind of seeing the X's and O's of these differences and these changes that, you can put it all on David Quinn, but I think a large part of this is Mike Sullivan noticing that something needs to change and also knowing that he's going to need to evolve when it comes to the power play and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's go over to points, the big one for this. Probably the biggest prediction we can make. Who is going to lead the Penguins in points this year? I'm going to say it goes to the guy who's led it 13 of the past 19 seasons. The only player on the Penguins that I'm confident can get a point per game. I'm going to go with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, that's what I went with too. Like I brought up before, it's the trend, and it always has been. Expect that to continue. Probably his entire career, honestly. If it's not Crosby, it's Malkin, and we know it's not going to be Malkin this year. So Sidney Crosby will take it in my eyes. I wrote down 102. I don't know. I just kind of shot a number down, and that would be a record-breaking number for his age. You figure I had 40 goals, 30 power play points. I mean, he's already looking up. I forget. We discussed it a little bit last episode, a couple episodes ago, and I kind of forget if I alluded to anything there. But 102 for Crosby to cap off another tremendous season, and with any luck, helping this team out in many ways, shapes, and forms.
Well, a little later in the show, we're going to go over-under, but I'm glad to know I already know your answer on that one. Crosby over under 94 points, which was his point total last year. Horwat said earlier in the show he's going over, and he's going 102. And you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll say he goes over the 94 points, and he goes up to 108 this season. I'm predicting a year of all years for Sidney Crosby. That's what I want to see. I have a lot of confidence in him this season. I think a better power play is going to help. And I also think with no Jake Gensel, even though the onus should not be on him because he scored 94, including 40 plus goals last year, I think he'll take that onus on himself to step up and do it himself a little bit more often. So I have Sidney Crosby over 94 points by a large margin. I have him at 108, which again, a little bit of risky for an early season prediction for a 37-year-old center, but I do believe that he's going to go out there and have himself a banger of a year.
So I'm just going to immediately start poking holes into what you're saying here, because
that's fun.
You also had Brian Rust leading the team in goals, but staying under 40.
I said 30 plus, well 30 over 30 plus. I'm not gonna say Brian Rust is gonna score 40 plus because he's never scored 30 plus. So I'm not gonna say it. If he does it, that'd be great. I just expect well over 30 plus. I think Crosby is going to be facilitator of facilitators this year.
No kidding. Because let's say Crosby gets 35. You're looking at, 73?
Yeah.
73 assists, which would be a 21 assist increase from last year.
Hey, I do like anyone to put faith in to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
87.
Absolutely. He'd lead the team in assists by a wide margin, but I like it. I do like it. Like I said, it's over 100 points. It is ghastly over, and I just like the confidence. I like the thought of he knows the position he's in at this point. He knows what this team is doing at this point. He's going to have to put it all on his back, and he's going to be facilitating everything he possibly can. I think part of what makes me give him another 40-goal season is that same thing, except he's going to be shooting a bit more than passing it. I mean, my split is, 41-61. So it's, hell, I have him, picking up a ton of extra assists, but that's where that power play comes into play. So it'll be fascinating to see what he can do. We got some extremely high expectations.
Yeah.
But I think the over 94 was obvious from the start if the power play was going to be clicking at a better pace, and it being, and him being so close to 100 already, it just seems passable.